It has been a week. Unfortunately, not a terribly good week. Not been a terribly bad week, but not a terribly good week either. Something really profound happened to me this week, and I want to share it with you. It's really just a realization, an epiphany, as it were, that I had that I want to share with you. Over the past few weeks, I have been suffering from that dreadful impostor syndrome. Woo! If you don't know what impostor syndrome is, Muse, if you've never suffered from it before, let me explain. Impostor syndrome is what happens to artists, or anyone actually, when all of a sudden they feel like they're an imposter, that they're not really any good at what they do, and they somehow manage to fool people into thinking they are. And it can be devastating. Imposter syndrome has caused people to quit doing what they do. It has sent people to therapy and worse. And every time I experience it, usually it comes and goes fairly quickly. Because I have a sort of method of dealing with it, in that when I realize what's happening, I step back and I try to figure out what is causing that imposter syndrome. And once I figure out what is causing it, then I can kind of hone in on that and rationalize it. You know, is it a lack of book sales? Is it bad input from beta readers? Is it just feeling like what I'm writing is not any good? Is it struggling in rehearsal? There are all sorts of things. But once I've figured out what is causing that imposter syndrome, I can deal with it. And it's important for me to take the time to figure out what it is that's causing it. Now, recently, however, I had a very different type of imposter syndrome. One that was brought about by something very unexpected. And I'm going to tell you about it right now. So, I have already told you that we're about to do a world premiere of a play that I wrote called I Profundus. And I didn't just write it, I'm also directing it. And this play deals with Oscar Wilde while he was imprisoned in Reading jail. And originally this was going to focus on primarily with his writing De Profundis, which was a sort of love letter to Bosie. He wrote while he was in prison. And as I was writing it, the play became about something very different. The play became about Oscar Wilde dealing with the fact that he had been stripped of his art. He was in prison. He had no audience. And that was a very hard thing for him to deal with. So I started writing it. I can't remember when I started writing it, but it was 2020, I think. So it was last year when I started. I mean, it took me about 2 weeks to write. The original script was probably twice as long as the script that we have now. So a lot of it was cut. Fortunately, it was Oscar Wilde's words that were cut, not mine. That's not the point. So I've been dealing with this script for a very long time, relatively speaking. I have been dealing with a character who is faced with a loss of his art. Let that sink in for a little bit. Not only did I write it, I'm directing it now, so I'm having to watch it and help the actor get where the actor needs to be in order to perform this script. Well, I was going to say in public, but we're filming it because of COVID, because theaters aren't open right now. So it dawned on me last week, after experiencing a rather pronounced and prolonged imposter syndrome, that what was happening was my empathy had kicked in, and I had developed this deep connection with what Oscar Wilde experienced. And I was, in the back of my head, I was absolutely dreading and fearing the loss of my own art. Which was ironic, because I believe that I Profundus is one of the finest things I've ever written. It was also one of the hardest things I've ever written. So it was a major accomplishment for me. So I'm watching these words be brought to life. I'm proud of these words, while at the same time, I'm experiencing imposter syndrome because of this connection I have to the character, because of what the character goes through, because the character is experiencing the same thing on a certain level, although he's experiencing it through the filters of Oscar Wilde, which is completely different. The point is that artists need to see this play. And I'm not saying that because I think every artist needs to go through what I'm going through, experiencing this imposter syndrome. What's important about this play is that it perfectly illustrates what happens when an artist is stripped away from their ability to create art. And the terror and the horror and the sorrow and the grief that we go through when that happens. And yet, we also watch Oscar Wilde realize that he has to continue being Oscar Wilde. He even says, be yourself, because everyone else is already taken. So he's got to be Oscar Wilde. That's the only way he knows how to deal with this. And sometimes, when I am hit with a bout of imposter syndrome, sometimes it does require me to dig in and say, what's causing this? And once I figure out what's causing this, then I can try to figure out how to get around it. But other times, when imposter syndrome hits, and I don't want this to sound like it's ego talking or anything like that, because it's not. But sometimes facing down imposter syndrome for me is simply just a matter of saying, you are better than this. And that you can't let self-doubt take you down. Because in the end, I believe fervently what Wilde said in Be Yourself, because everyone else is already taken. I have a unique voice. The voice that I have taken 20 plus years to develop as a writer is a unique voice. And I'm proud of that voice. Right now, I am reading Reapers 3, For Whom the Reap Tolls, because I'm about ready to pick up that series again. And I'm going to start writing A Midsummer Night's Reap. You got it. You bet. It's going to be Shakespearean. It's not going to be actually Shakespearean, but it's going to be influenced by my favorite Shakespeare play, A Midsummer Night's Dream, because all of the titles of all of these books are based on classical books. That was just a convention I created during the first three. But I'm reading the third book in the Reaper series, and I'm very proud of it. It's at some point in your career as a writer or as an artist, period, whatever, as a painter, as an actor, as a musician, whatever, you have to get to the point where you can read, listen to, watch, whatever, your own work and not feel disgusted by it, not feel ashamed or embarrassed by it. You need to be able to feel proud of it. And you need to be able to view, consume whatever this work of yours and see it as a viable commodity for consumers to consume. You need to be able to open up those books, read it and go, yes, this was ready and this is good and people will enjoy this. And sometimes getting over imposter syndrome is just simply a matter of going back and finding that one book that you're so proud of, or that one song that you're so proud of, and and consuming it, reading it, listening to it, and go, yes, I did this. It's not ego. Ego would be saying this book is better than everybody else's book. No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying this book is good. And one of the telltale signs of that for me, at least with books, is when I'm not having to struggle to get through them, or I'm reading a book and I'm a quarter of the way through it and I don't know what's going on. I don't really know the characters. I haven't connected to any characters or anything like that. But I'm reading book 3 of my Reaper series, and I just recently started. I'm a slow reader. I just recently started. I'm 60% of the way done with it, and I'm enjoying it. And I can remember exactly everything that's happened. I know the characters. Granted, of course, I know the characters because I wrote them. But remember, it's been a few years since I wrote this book, so I don't remember how the narrative goes. I don't remember the plot. So I'm discovering the plot again. There are moments where I'm like, I don't even remember writing that. But hey, that's pretty good. And so it's been kind of a tug of war for me lately, wherein I feel this imposter syndrome in the back of my head, thanks to dealing with I Profundus, while at the same time I'm listening to the words of I Profundus saying, yes, that is really good. I'm very proud of this work. It's one of the finest things I've ever written. And reading To Whom the Reap Tolls, going, this is a good story. These are good characters. I wrote this well. So the imposter syndrome is not winning this battle. However, and this is the problem, is that artists are so used to imposter syndrome, so used to letting it infect us, and just kind of weave its tendrils deep into the warp and weft of our bodies, that we give it agency. We allow it to take up residence in us. It's almost like we say, welcome, imposter syndrome, my old friend. I'm comfortable with you because I know you so well. You're here all the time. You may as well just live in my head rent-free for the rest of my life. Well, guess what? You don't have to let that happen. You can look imposter syndrome in the eyes and say, nay, nay, you are not coming in my house this time. And you should be able to find that place in your career where you can open up those books, read them, and say, bye-bye, imposter syndrome. You have no place in my life. Be gone. Because truth be told, creating art is hard enough as it is. And to make matters worse, we are all way too hard on ourselves. We have acclimated our minds and our hearts to the idea of just constantly beating ourselves up. When every once in a while you've just got to reach around and pat yourself on the back and say, damn good job. You did it. Huzzah. And that's okay. So, I Profundus will be filming next week, and I will announce when it is available to watch. It'll be available to stream all over the world. And I think you should watch it. If you're an artist of any type, you should watch it. Because I think you will not only commiserate with Wilde, you will relate to Wilde, and you will see that even in the depths of sorrow and imprisonment, you can overcome imposter syndrome. Thank you for listening to me, Muse, and you, all of my lovely, wonderful favorite artists out there. We have each other's backs. We have to. I'm here for you. If you have a question, ask me. Reach out. Say, hey, I want to know about this. Can you help me with this? Ask, and ye shall receive. Why? Because you, my friends, are awesome.